Hello, adventurer. It's good to see you. You have made it to the morning grind.
Welcome, welcome.
It's the live stream at the beginning of the Geekverse, where we talk about all types of topics in geekdom, gaming, and fantasy, with an emphasis on being constructive and creating the things that we want to exist in the world.
It's all on the grind, Sizemore. Can't be too fine, can't be too coarse.
That's exactly right. There are a lot of adventures to be had today. Dungeons to explore and monsters to slay, and who knows what a random encounter might send our way. That's why we have to prepare, so settle in now for the morning grind with your favorite beverage in hand.
Tea? Or maybe something a little stronger. I've got a few bottles of the old Wynyard left.
Whatever you want. Pull up a chair.
Dude.
If you're feeling fancy, how about a cappuccino? Or a frappuccino? Or how about an espresso?
Just tea, thank you.
Sounds good to me, Gandalf. Whatever you want. I'm just glad you're here.
Everyone is welcome. You can just watch if you want. You don't have to worship anything you don't want to worship.
Thank you, Mike. But be forewarned.
Sometimes we get really strange characters around here.
Wait, what's that you say? Why can't you come and be a part of the stream?
My wife would disown me.
Oh no, I bet she'll be fine with it. Come on in.
Am I scared for my safety? No.
What are we supposed to do?
Everybody do the secret handshake.
Secret cultist handshake.
Oh, now do wizards who love each other.
This, my friend, is a science.
I still don't have gifts, but it's fine.
It's all on the grind, son. Can't be too fine, can't be too coarse.
Dude, this would be a sick place to bring the band.
Indeed it would be, Dave. It really would. I'm seeing more people coming in. Welcome, glad to have you here. Oh look, here's someone new.
Is this the cultist meetup?
Yes it is.
Come to hang out? Please accept me. I have nothing else.
Okay, we accept you. Everyone's welcome here.
Brought some snacks.
Well, that makes things even better.
You want some coffee? I don't drink coffee. You sure? It's cultist coffee. What makes it cultist coffee? I'm a cultist and I'm drinking it. Oh. Then I'll have some.
What exactly is going on here?
I'm seeing more people coming in. Welcome. It's so great to have you. Oh, and look, here comes another stranger.
Can we help you?
Yes, fellow cultists. I could really use some food.
Oh yeah? Welcome. We have donuts.
Oh, it's me. I'm glad I'm here. I'm sure you have a few questions for me, though.
What's your name? Who do you work for? What god do you worship?
Great questions, Rob.
I'm Steve King, and I worship Nyarlathotep.
No, not really. I'm just Heath, and I won't be worshiping anything this morning. But I will be your host. Welcome to the office. We're going to have a great time. I've got my coffee ready, because now it's time for the morning grind.
If you could become a fish, that would be amazing. Then I could command you with my mental fish powers.
Testing, testing, testing. Testing, testing. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? Better. Okay. Huh. Well, I have no idea what happened. So obviously you heard some of it, and then all of a sudden I got muted. Man. Sorry about that. Yep. I have no idea what happened. All of a sudden I switched over to another microphone, I guess, which is pretty strange. So I don't remember where I was in any of that. I think somebody was talking about the book of erotic fantasy. That part must have been talked about. But anyway, I don't know. Okay, well. Okay, well, all right. I was completely silent from the beginning. We heard, oh my God. Huh. Well, okay. Well, all right. All right, fine. So Robert had come up with the idea. So Robert had been asking this question. And I said I didn't think that was a straw man argument because because if they're reserving the right to police this, if they're reserving the right to be the morality police themselves, then that's not a straw man argument. Because we had a discussion in the Discord server last night, and Eric Mona has been talking about this in relation to the orc license. That is that even an appropriate place for some kind of morality clause or something like that? Is something that, because he was saying that the open gaming license has to do with game mechanics. It doesn't have anything to do with what kind of material can you associate with a trademark or a brand or something like that. So if they're reserving that kind of right to themselves, then I think it's completely legitimate to discuss what exactly they might consider hateful. And that doesn't matter. And it matters because you can have a change of leadership, because we had a complete understanding of what the OGL was, but then there was a change of leadership. Now leadership has changed it, and now they have what, in my opinion, is an unlawful and very dangerous precedent to set regarding open licensing. So if you're reserving this power to yourself, a lot of people will say, well, hey, no, I mean, this person has got this power and they're going to be the morality judge. And hey, it's fine because my opinions align perfectly with the leadership's opinions. So it's fine. They're not going to do anything that I wouldn't object to. Well, maybe they change their mind, or maybe there's a change of leadership. So I don't think it's a straw man to be concerned about that. And the example that I was giving was the book of erotic fantasy. The book of erotic fantasy was the one that ran afoul of the D20 trademark license, which was different. See, if you separate these things out rather than trying to conflate them as Wizards is doing, Dancy had the wisdom to separate these things out. The OGL was about game rules. The D20 trademark license was more restrictive, and that's fine. It can completely be. The D20 trademark license was more restrictive. It was the Book of Erotic Fantasy was published under the D20 license, and it was also published under the OGL. And I think it ran afoul of the D20 license. But I think for erotic content, I noticed that it's available on eBay, but the price is high. But if anybody has one, we can take a look at it. And Lamentations, the Flame Princess, I was saying, is one we need to look at. That one came up a lot regarding an encumbrance system, but I haven't, I don't know anything about its content. Okay. All right. Well, I guess we caught up. I guess that was what I was saying. I'll get down to the bottom of the comments to make sure that nobody has said anything else. So, all right. Oh, Open D&D says, good morning, folks. I have a primary contact inside Hasbro Legal who is traveling to WotC. Hasbro now knows all 50 states AAGs have been contacted, plus the core rights violated. Excellent, excellent, excellent. I think this is the one to go. Now, one thing I didn't get to work on, but I need to work on it soon, is if we want to put out some videos to get Hasbro's attention. And I think we should. So this is great. If there is somebody inside Hasbro with their legal team who's going in. This now would be a great time to do that. Now would be a great time to do that, and also potentially put some money behind it for advertising to get their attention. I've got a little bit that I could dedicate to that, but if I create the videos, we could definitely advertise them and see how many views it takes to actually get Hasbro's attention. Millmaster says Wizards had proven they will apply morality to Magic the Gathering cards to the point of preventing third-party sellers from reselling 25-year-old cards. Oh, I didn't know that. And Lamentations of the Flame Princess is OGL. We'll have to look at that. Well, yeah, we have to be sure, and I think hitting stock prices and things like that are key as well. Okay, so I tell you what, let's go to the messages, and then let's dive into creating RPGs. The Morning Grind is brought to you by World Anvil. For all the game masters out there, World Anvil supports more than 45 systems, including D&D, or you can create your own. It allows game masters to plan, play, and present their adventures and campaigns. Use the code MORNINGGRIND to get 40% off yearly subscriptions. The Morning Grind is also brought to you by the World of Ataltus. The Ataltus Player's Guide includes 7 new lineages that provide something new and fresh for your player characters. Check it out on ataltus.com and get it for your table. The Morning Grind is also brought to you by the Thrones and Bones Viking-inspired fantasy RPG setting. It includes 37 new creatures and monsters, including the Butter Cat, a tiny feline construct made of yarn and spindles that steals milk for its master. Get the book on DriveThruRPG today. And thank you for being here with me live on The Morning Grind. And if you're watching on replay, welcome to you as well. It's great to have you here. If you're enjoying The Morning Grind, please click the like button and subscribe to the channel if you're not already. It will really help the channel grow, and I would be very thankful. We also have the Ravenkeep Discord server you can join if you would like to be a part of the community. Alright, that's what you need to know. Let's get to the main topic. So, the more I was thinking about this a lot, Open D&D. This is a fantastic thing that's happening over here, because we hit that pressure point, because there are multiple things that need to happen here. First, the framing of the conversation publicly, and what's going on with the conversation, how to frame that. But then there's also the legal argument that has to be made, and the legal argument has to be made because that has to be sound. And as far as I'm concerned over here, we've got that. The framing of the public discussion needs to change, because Wizards kind of took that from us on Friday with their drop. But I want to make sure that I want to get the public discussion moving in another direction, and making sure that people understand the consequences of an attack on an open license and why this is so bad. And then the other thing that needs to happen is to make sure that Hasbro executives, specifically involving investment around the Dungeons and Dragons movie and stock prices, are at least at risk, which they should be, in my opinion. Good morning, everybody. Good morning, everybody. Good morning. Hey, Nathan. Good to see you. This is the first Morning Grind I've watched. Tight intro. Thank you. I had some tech problems where apparently I was muted right after that. But good to see everybody. Good to see everybody. I'm so glad you're here. Welcome. Open D&D says, I have a letter to the USPTO. We can back that effort. The trademark challenge is $600. I've asked for a fee waiver under a federal. Cool. All right. Well, we'll try to get on that. And if we need, I don't know how we would, if we need to raise funds or something for advertising or something like that, we will. Okay. So let's talk about the main topic, which is on Tuesdays, we talk about RPG design. I was working on this morning, and I need to work a lot more on this, as well as everything else, because everything I've got to do has to do with, that really matters in the long term, has to do with writing. So I'm looking forward to this. Thank you. We will definitely talk about it. We can talk about something like that. So no, James Bacon says, wait, AGs have been contacted. This is an update on the OGL. I haven't heard of anything new. This has been what Open D&D has been working on. Open D&D has been on this and contacting AGs and working behind the scenes on all this legally. So on the legal side of this. So there we go. All right. So one of the things that I was thinking of, so with regard to a physical product on the other channel, on the other shows where we were talking about making a world book, I said, I'm trying to think of how to make something like this. This is the product. So my initial idea then is, hey, I'd like to be able to make something like this. This is a 6x9 book that's got 48 pages in it. And could I create something like this to explain an RPG system? Because obviously Fate has done it with Fate Accelerated. And I'm not sure if I can do that or not with the situation on a world book. Well, I can just have a smaller amount of world content there, a smaller amount of world material, and then expand. But with game rules, I want to be sure that the whole thing is complete and that there are actually enough rules in it to play. So I started the design with trying to come up with what the action resolution system is. How do you resolve an action in this system? Because that's the way that we've been studying RPGs. And I wanted to be sure that if we're making an RPG, the first thing we do is figure out how we actually play, how we're actually resolving actions, and then go backward to see what type of stats, for instance, a character has to have. I was also doing this morning, and I wish I had done this as we were going through a whole bunch of different RPGs, to think about the things that caught our eye when we were reading through different ones. Pathfinder 2E so far, well, I wish I had taken notes, but I was just trying to think of things here. So if you think of things that were particularly impressive and unique that we thought of or we noticed while we were reading through different RPGs, we can add that in here. And I should post this in the Discord server under like the game design area of different things that we've looked at and liked. I wish I had been keeping notes as I was going through, because we've looked at a lot of RPGs for now. But Pathfinder 3E, the 3-action economy and also all of its conditions, I was thinking I hadn't thought about the 3-action economy in relation to this game until this morning. And Pathfinder 2E is published under the Open Gaming License. So bringing in the 3-action economy and kind of cleaning it up, making some adjustments that we like, might be perfect for this kind of game system, because this is a more narratively driven game system. And I don't expect people to be going to the like square by square maps much. But they could. But in a narrative system, I think this 3-action economy could work really well. Plus, I love conditions, and Pathfinder 2 has a bunch of conditions. Index RPG, I want to look at again. I want to reread that again. But I remember one of the things that stood out to me was using hit points, basically hit points for everything in order to adjudicate partial success. Adjudicating partial success is always an issue, because I like partial success and I like different degrees of success, but adjudicating it at the table can sometimes be difficult. But Index RPG seems to have had a very mechanical way to do that I think is interesting and can work well. Black Hack, I remember liking time and distance and also armor breakage. It had a good system for that. We started going through the Codex Martialis, and we should probably look at that again, which was, an extremely dense book. I remember something about bypassing armor over there being a good one, because I do definitely want to have the ability to, armor absorbs damage, but what if you attack a place without armor, but doing it in an easy way as far as a narrative story goes. Because you might be deft and very swift and be able to poke someone where there isn't armor. Now, Hackmaster, I still love the initiative system. I love the initiative system, but I don't think it's right for this game. I think we need to rewrite their initiative system for something like Pathfinder. I think it's fantastic, because Hackmaster goes second by second, but I don't think that's appropriate for this game. So something up here with the 3-action economy, I think is going to work. For Fate, I love aspects and I like consequences for wounds and injury. I remember a bulk system for encumbrance. We haven't looked at Pathfinder's encumbrance system yet, but we also have, as far as the bulk system goes, 5 Torches Deep may have had that, but then also 5 Torches Deep had a supply system for inventory that I thought was interesting. May not be right, but could be interesting. Now, the Black Hack also had usage dice. I don't think that's the way I want to go, but some people would. So Black Hack, it was still something that stood out to us in that RPG. Let me go over here and see what people are saying in the comments, because I know people are interested in what's going on with Open D&D. Yeah, see, I started with the AGs. Man, way back then. Open 12/12/22. If you need to coordinate inside, I mean, you can coordinate wherever, but if you need to coordinate on all of this, the Discord, Ravenkeep Discord server is a great place to do this. We can start a discussion or thread. That's fine. And do that. Oh, speaking of World Book, I did post a setting supplement for Blood Shield in the Discord forum. That reminds me, I was also watching this morning the AI wizard on YouTube working with GPT and also, well, one of the image generators, one of the art generators, and how to use that. I'm really interested in that. BGD, the signature mechanic from ICRPG you're citing here is known as effort, and it's the extension of measured progress beyond combat encounters. Effort tallies hit points of damage and other tasks. Okay, so this is effort. Yeah, you know, we had mentioned that. We had mentioned the idea on one of the very early discussions of RPG design about basically extending hit points to something else, because I didn't want action. I'm looking for a unified action resolution mechanic. So I'm trying to do. So resolving an action, like killing a monster, that's an action. So it would be great if the combat system wasn't something different. It was still part of the whole unified action resolution mechanic. So one thing you could do is not use hit points in combat. And if you've got some other system that's resolving other actions, use that to resolve combat as well. But the other thing you could do, which it seems Index Card RPG goes and does, is say, well, can we use hit points in other situations? And basically that's what they do. So effort tallies hit points of damage in other tasks, marking progress over time and rounds, just like whittling down an opponent's hit points in combat, like trying to unlock a door or something. How long does that take? Rather than saying, well, it takes X amount of time, roll for the hit points against the lock. I like it. I like it. Yeah, see, I was trying to not get, when Alan is saying called shots, for this level of kind of narrative-driven RPG, I was trying not to get into exact called shots, because that's what when I saw the bypassing armor rules, that you just, if you're wearing a suit of armor, then it should have some type of bypass value. That would be easy. And that way you're not trying to say, now, is the head covered or is this covered or whatever. But if you just knew that, well, you could take a certain penalty to try to just bypass the armor, it would keep from having to get into all the detail about individual locations in this particular game, but would allow you to, if you're particularly deft, to be able to do that. Yeah, Colonel likes usage dice. OpenD&D says, my 2d20 system merges initiative and the number of attacks per round. It's based on the attack roll. Either a miss 1, 2, or 3, 4 attacks. The scaling of increase plays 75%. The scaling of this increases play by 75% than the critical roll. Stable diffusion, that's it. Yep, he was using stable diffusions. Yep, Thaco, I'm using zones for combat. Yep. Yeah, it was really impressive. GPT is great at AI interactive fiction RPG, lots of potential. I experimented with it very briefly a few months ago, and it sounds like it's even gotten better since then. Trey says you could use conditions on items instead of HP. That way you use the same system for players, monsters. Like, yeah, like broken. Like, when does it become broken? That's a condition. Could be. Hey, the last Phoenix. Hello. Okay, so I was trying to take these notes. So I probably will expand on these a little bit according to my thinking, and then put them in the Discord server for people to talk about too. So I was looking at the action system. We went over the action system. We talked about the custom dice. I'm not going to go back over all of that. And the particular distribution of dice that we're looking at, that's been in previous ones. We've gone over that and all the math behind all of the dice. Because there's a particular distribution that I want with the dice in this game. But I was taking a look at the action system. This is why I was like, I wonder how long, what's the least amount that I need to write in order to specify the Fated Edge system. But it may end up being more than 10,000 words, because I'm starting here with the Edge action system, which actually have not put that in, written a whole lot intro, but the action overview we went over in detail. But now this is the complete action rules. And right now that is standing at 6,202 words. So 6,202 words are taking up how much it takes to describe the action right now, and it's not even complete. So I would still need to describe creating characters and going over character sheets, because I was doing that later, because once I know the action resolution system, then I will come back and know exactly what type of attributes my characters have to have. So right now, I don't think I've written much over here. Okay, so there's another 878 words on characters, but that's barely gotten started. So it may take more than 10,000 words to explain this. Maybe 15,000, maybe 15,000. But I'm still looking for, what's the least? I like to talk about that. What's the least you can do in order to accomplish a task? Because I can always think of what's the most I can do. What's the most I can do? I can write one of these gigantic 400-page RPG books. Okay, but I don't want to do that. What's the least I can do to get this started? So maybe it's about 15,000 words, but that means I've got to write. So I think that we had just started getting into how we do an action. And actually, I was thinking if I go to this 3-action economy, which I had not even thought about the action economy, but I kind of like it. Similar to what Fate what Pathfinder has. I've got to come up with a different thing, different terminology, maybe activities or something like that, because I've got action here and I'm being very specific about what it means to take an action. But if you get 3 actions on a turn and one of them is movement, I want to be very careful with those definitions. So this is how you resolve an action. Do I actually mean that you can do 3 of these in a turn? Maybe. But maybe not. Maybe you get to do 3 activities a turn, some of which are actions. Maybe something like that. I don't know. But I got to think about that. Because I want to be very clear in the terminology. Vision says, zones, isn't that what you had used for terra tiles? Right, yeah, terra tiles would be perfect for this. Exactly. Terra tiles are the terrain system that my brother and I created, and I'm having reprinted. So I think terra tiles would be perfect for zone-based combat. I went over the use of terra tiles in Fate and also in the One Ring, so I would expect it to be the same thing right here. Trey asks, sorry to ask, did you find a way to have skills way more than attributes in the resolution system? They do. So yeah, we're about to look at that. So, all right. So let's go to actions. Actions checked difficulties, and how I worked through the math here. So I don't remember exactly where we were. I suppose we need to take notes on that. But okay. So this is what I said with actions. At its most basic level, the GM describes the state of the world, frequently involving obstacles for the players to overcome. Taking turns, the players will describe how they want the state of the world to change by actions their characters will take. The GM and the player whose character is attempting the action determine whether each action succeeds or fails. Based on that success or failure, the GM describes a new state of the world. Then, the process repeats itself with another player. In turn, the GM may also have non-player characters attempt actions as well, many of which may directly influence the PCs if successful. So players declare actions for their characters to undertake. So here is my definition of an action as it is going right now. An action must include, or what is required in order to actually do an action must include a desired outcome, exactly what about the world will change as the result of the action, and a description of how the character will attempt to bring about the outcome. Specifying the outcome is essential because whether or not that outcome occurs is what the GM and player must adjudicate. For instance, I swing my sword is not an action because it does not specify the outcome the player wants to bring about in conjunction with how they will attempt to do it. What needs to be determined is if the outcome the player specified was brought about or not. I want to kill the monster by swinging my sword is an action. The desired outcome is the death of the monster. The method used, the how, is swinging the sword. Whether or not the monster is killed is what must be determined and adjudicated. So I wanted to start with that very clear definition of what I think an action is. And I think we did say that last time. Sometimes you may have to make a check in order to determine if your action is successful. August says, what software program are you using to write this game? This is Scrivener. I have Scrivener up here. I use Scrivener for all of my long form documents. It's a great system. Oh, thank you. Okay, I will, when I'm off this, I will look at Twitter, and I'll definitely retweet as well. OpenD&D says, I sent a tweet to Heath with a sample one-page US PTO protest letter. I removed my info so other people can use it. Great. We'll get to that after the stream. Thank you, OpenD&D. Thank you. So Checks and when to make them. When a player declares a character is performing an action, the GM determines whether the action is automatically a success, automatically a failure, or if it's only possible the action might succeed. Successful actions bring about the action's specified outcome. A failed action may have consequences for the characters or others. If a GM determines it is impossible to complete an action, it fails. For instance, a character may want to jump a castle wall, but if the wall is too tall to have any chance for jumping, but the wall is too tall to have any chance of jumping over it. Many times, the reason players declare impossible actions is because of a mistaken understanding of the game world, the particulars of a given situation, or the rules of the game. In these cases, the player should not suffer any ill consequences from the misunderstanding, especially if the failure of the action would cause harm to the player's character. Simply clear up any misunderstanding and allow the player to declare another action if desired. So I wanted to specify that. And also, I like the idea from, I believe the Angry GM originated this, that feedback, if the players have to ask a question, they shouldn't have to do that. That means there's something that's not been clear. Once the GM describes the situation, the players should be able to immediately respond with what their action declarations are. If they have to ask questions for additional clarification, that's what you want to try to reduce. You're not going to be able to completely eliminate it, but you're trying to reduce the players going, and then having to ask questions about the situation. The GM should define it, and then they should respond. Alternatively, the GM may determine the action is so easy that it is automatically successful. In these cases, the outcome is automatically brought about, the state of the world changes, and the game continues. Similarly, if the GM determines that any one attempt at the action is only possibly successful, but failure would impose no significant cost or consequence on the character, such as by the expenditure of valuable time and limited resources. And I want to emphasize time in this game because it's an underused resource, I think, in RPGs. And that he or she could keep trying until the action succeeds, the action is successful. The GM determines what amount of time passes when the character tries and retries the action until the desired outcome was brought about. If the action is at some risk of consequential failure, the character must pass a check to successfully complete the task. So then we will go over to checks. Let me go over here to this. Pan Smith says, what if we have a mechanic that resolves the action without an arbitrary DC value? Just decide on a skilled threshold based on the action attempted. What if we have a mechanic that resolves the action without an arbitrary DC value? Now, I am using DC values. Just decide on a skill threshold based on the action. But actually, what you're saying sounds like GURPS to me. I mean, there are other systems that use that. I mean, so you could totally do that, I think. So, if you're playing GURPS, every skill you've got has a value listed by it, and you're trying to roll equal to or under that number on 3d6. So it makes it easy for the game master to call out, make a swimming check or make a fighting check or whatever it is, and doesn't have to come up with a DC because the skill of that player in that is already on the page. So you could do it that way. Now what the game master has to do in that case is sometimes impose penalties. Say, all right, make a swimming check at -5. You could totally do that. Thought Totem says Cypher System has a system that uses a limited number of stats in a near universally applied action, which is very similar, I suppose, to what I'm about to say and do here, because I think that's important. You need to be able to universally do actions using a small number of sets, and the Cypher System is on our short list to look at. Oh, I haven't heard of this one. Also worth looking at the Cognate RPG system for minimalist system with broad applicability. I don't know that one. So that one might need to go on the list as well. Okay, so here's target numbers, difficulty and target numbers. To determine the difficulty of an action, the GM must first determine if the opposition to the action is passive opposition or active opposition. Generally, obstacles and objects provide passive opposition. Typically, other characters in the world with a will and ability to act provide active opposition. When the character encounters active opposition, the difficulty of the check is determined by a relevant resistance of the opposing characters. So this was an idea that is not unique to me, but even though I tend to like rolling for defense and things like that, I have reasons from the game design perspective that it may not be a good thing to do. And I was going to do a whole video on this, and I probably still will, to put out on YouTube. I was thinking about it around New Year's and was having a discussion on this subject on Twitter, that in order to do about why active defense or why active opposition or something like that may not be right from a game design perspective. That it seems to me from the game design perspective, the player who is acting should be rolling the dice, and that rather than doubling the number of dice that need to be rolled in order to resolve an issue, just have it all needs to be there. And your random element with that dice roll is accounting for both sides. I think that the active offense and active defense works best when you have asymmetry in the dice that you're rolling on both sides. I think it works the worst when you've got the same random value on both sides, like a d20 over here and a d20 over here. When you're rolling to attack, roll a d20. When you're rolling to defend, roll a d20, because you're adding the same randomness to both sides, so they cancel out. I think my understanding is that they cancel out. If you're rolling a d20 over here and a d20 over here, you're effectively canceling each other out. Now, not on any particular roll, of course. That's been brought up on Twitter, because this person can roll an 8 and this person can roll a 17. But your swinginess is on both sides. If you're going to have a d20 swinginess, just have one roll of a d20. If you are going to have active and passive, active defense and active offense, make that asymmetry that you're rolling. And we have seen that in some games. That's why I think Hero Quest does work, because Hero Quest has asymmetry in the random values. You roll to attack and you roll to defend, but you're not always rolling the same number of dice to attack and defend. Different monsters have different attack values and different defense values, and different heroes have attack values and defense values. So you're always pairing something different up. And then plus what you're trying to roll, white shields and black shields, are different. So that works because there's asymmetry in there. We looked at the Riddle of Steel combat. The Riddle of Steel was a great show, which the Codex Martialis also has a lot in there. And that deliberately has asymmetry, because like you've got like a certain amount of like attack power or battle power or whatever they call it. It's not exactly that, and then you allocate that for attack and defense. You're swinging back and forth, and you're making decisions about how many of these dice in a dice pool you're going to allocate to an attack versus how much you're going to allocate to a defense. And I like that. So that's we need to look at that. We need to experiment with that combat system. But I think that it potentially works there because it's asymmetrical. So I'm trying to reduce the number of dice that have to be used to resolve an action. And so that's why I'm saying that basically everything needs to have some type of equivalent of an armor class that at the moment I'm calling a resistance that you're going to roll against. Players, especially good ones, so BGD says players, especially good ones, are often enticed to ask questions by a GM's immersive descriptions because it spurs their creativity. A GM cannot reasonably anticipate every action a player could take. So eliminating players' questions completely isn't necessarily a valid or desirable goal. Okay, I agree. But if the questions that are being asked are spurring creativity and are enhancing the game, then great. If the question is, no, wait a minute. So wait, where's the orc standing? Is he close to that pit? Wait a minute. Where am I? So can I cast, so how large was the room again? Like those kinds of questions you should try to eliminate, I think, because those are clarification questions about what's going on that, some other things should be able to clarify and then move on to that. We've got to look at that. It's quite elegant. Shadow of the Demon Lord. Dirma says that as a DM in my games of D&D, mostly I have my players before do an action to describe what their character wants to do. So I will set a difficulty DC. So when a character encounters passive opposition, the GM determines the difficulty of the action and therefore the likelihood of success. And I think I was looking at these thresholds last time. The difficulty of an action can range from trivial to nearly impossible. It doesn't make any sense to say impossible. So nearly impossible has to be the top, because if it's impossible, then you just can't do it. And the game master would just tell you that. So it's going to range from trivial to nearly impossible. And here is that right here. So here are my target numbers based on difficulty. Trivial, 0, very easy, 5, easy, 10, moderate, 15, hard, 20, very hard, 25, extremely hard, absurdly hard, 35, and then nearly impossible, 40. So there's your structure and your ladder to build attributes and skills around. And remember, if you're new to looking at this with us, we have a very large range of skill and attribute that's static for you. And then a much smaller range that's going to be randomly generated according to a very specific distribution. So you should be able to have a really good understanding of exactly what type of tasks your character can accomplish. By the way, another system that uses both active and passive roles and does so with asymmetry is Cortex. The Cortex system does this. Now, you roll a lot of dice in Cortex, because you've got to determine your target number is based on some dice that the game master is going to roll and vice versa. But you've got asymmetry in your dice pools. Again, you've got asymmetry in the dice pools, so I think it works. The difficulty is chosen based on how difficult the action would be to complete in average conditions because of its intrinsic properties. There may still be other factors that can make any particular incident of this action easier or harder. See bonus and penalty dice. So we got to get to that. But the difficulty of the action should not change during the game unless there is an intrinsic change to the nature of the obstacle. For instance, if the GM determines that climbing a castle wall is a hard action, then it will be a hard action every time it's attempted during the game unless something about the nature of the castle wall changes. However, one particular time a character attempts to climb the wall, it may be pouring rain, which would make the climb harder. This would cause a penalty die to be applied to the check, not increase the difficulty rating of climbing the wall. Each difficulty has an associated target number that must be rolled on the check in order to be successful. So boom, that's what we just went down on. So hopefully, moderate, hard, very hard, extremely hard. You're probably also frequently playing in moderate, hard, or very hard DCs. So there shouldn't be a whole lot for the game master to adjudicate. But is this moderate, hard? Is this very hard? Or is it something outside of that? But I was trying to make these adjectives easy to adjudicate. Open D&D says, my 2D20 system swings off an asymmetry of the critical hit threshold. The higher the level of the character, the less swing. BGD says, giving players the right amount of information a priori to focus questions and discussions proffered on their turn should be the goal. And that's a balancing act that's predicated on evolving GM skill. I think that's a great observation. The Last Phoenix says, have I ever played Infinity from Corvus Belli? Kind of a war game. I have not. It has opposed D20 rolls. It has different target numbers you need to hit, and above is a fail. I have not played that. Michael of St. Joseph says, I love how much you talk about HeroQuest. I played that as a kid with my friends, and we never knew how to play, so we turned it into a PvP war game. Well, HeroQuest is extremely influential on me because that was the first tabletop fantasy game that I ever played. And when I saw the commercial, I wanted it so badly, and I got it for Christmas that year. And I've been painting it up, and I painted it up, and I've been playing with my nephews. I played 2 games with my nephews, and so I'm using the game once again to introduce a new generation into tabletop fantasy, and I've just been loving it. So active opposition. Whenever a character attempts an action that would put him or her in direct opposition to another character's skills or abilities, the target number to succeed, that should be succeed, is determined by one of the character's resistances, and resistances are calculated as follows: 8 plus target's relevant ability modifier plus target's relevant skill. So this is how I was trying to structure that. So let me show you this over here. Let me remove this for just a second, and share this. Because this right here, I've got my task difficulties over here going from 0 to 40. And then the ability scores are over here. So this I haven't written out the ability scores yet, but there are like 4 of them. And then they're going to be on a range of basically, it could be 0, I suppose, 0 to 20. And with average being 5. So an average value in an ability score would be a 5. Godlike would be a 20. And then, you can go anywhere in between, but those are your benchmarks. Average, if you're deficient, you're someplace around 3. So actually that should be 3, like 3 or 4. And then like 1 or 2 is impaired. But everybody would be around 5, gifted 6 to 8, extraordinary around 10, and so forth. Then I went with 3 different proficiency levels. And this, I was thinking about this before we were reading Pathfinder. So these might have ended up being the same kind of terms that Pathfinder used. But I was actually basing this off of the AD&D proficiency system with like specialists and mastery and grand mastery with weapons and things like that. So this is when not under pressure. I've changed up this. Somebody suggested that I use under pressure instead of adventuring conditions in the comments on last time. And I like that. So not under pressure bonus. You're not rolling dice when you're under pressure. So you get an automatic 5. So your proficiency levels are familiar, trained, expert, and mastery. And most of the time we're talking about being trained in something. If you're trained in something, you get a +5. It's much more difficult to become an expert and very, very difficult to become mastery. But familiarity is also there if you've got secondary skills or hobby level skills or whatever else. You're trained in the skill that you're probably is like your profession. So I was trying to make it so that if you are an average person and you are trained in a skill and you're not under pressure, you're not in adventuring conditions, you have plenty of time, that means you've got 15, no dice roll required. You can take care of moderate tasks all the time. You can routinely do moderate tasks of moderate difficulty. If you add other reasons that it might be easier for you, then you can go up from there. And we're about to do that kind of breakdown. But this was the 3 things that go into it. Proficiency, well, 4 things. Proficiency, bonus for not being under pressure, your ability scores, and then compared to some kind of task difficulty. That's what I'm thinking right now. And it seems to be kind of crystallizing around that. Let's see. Nathan Winnett says, mechanically, an opposed roll is similar to an attacker having disadvantage per 5e. Not identical, but similar. Mechanically, I'll have to think about that. An opposed roll is similar to an attacker having disadvantage. You are having 2 d20s rolled in there. I'll have to think about that more. But yeah, it's something like that. Yeah, something like that I can see. It probably is something like similar. How the heck do you roll a 40? Well, you can't roll a 40. You can't roll one. No, you're going to have to make sure that your character is highly skilled. So for example, this is behind the screen difficulties and success. Generally speaking, characters with an average ability score of 5 will be able to accomplish actions with a difficulty of trivial and very easy, even when under pressure and not proficient in any relevant skill. Such a character will see, and also so trivial and very easy. You could even say things like getting something out of your pack or drawing a sword or something like that. These things are trivial, so you can tell exactly why they're so easy to do. Such a character will rarely be able to accomplish easy TN5 actions under pressure. However, when not under pressure, such a character will automatically be able to accomplish an easy action. So, for instance, and I was thinking about automotive repair when I was thinking about these. A character with an average ability score of 5 who is trained in a skill 5 and is not under pressure will succeed at actions with a moderate difficulty. No roll required. Like you can do, if it's TN 15 or less, you got it in the bag, as long as there aren't any other extenuating circumstances. But you can just do it. You got it in the bag. A character with an average ability score who is an expert in a skill and not under pressure will succeed at actions with a hard difficulty. So TN 20. Once you become an expert, even if you're average ability with no other extenuating circumstances, once you become an expert, you can do hard things, no problem. That's what you're an expert. So the skill is mattering more than the ability score. And we're not rolling dice when we're not under pressure. So we just get our +5. So a character with an average ability score who is a master of a skill and not under pressure will succeed at actions with very hard difficulty. TN 25. So mastery, you're doing things with TN 25 without any kind of problem. So if you are a character, if you're trying to attempt the nearly impossible and that's a 40. A character with a godlike ability score, a 20, who has mastery of a skill, 15, and is not under pressure, will automatically succeed at actions that are nearly impossible. So if you want to do the nearly impossible, being godlike in your ability scores and having the highest degree of mastery in the relevant ability score and having that highest degree of proficiency, working on your own without pressure, there you go. That's how you can do the nearly impossible. External circumstances that warrant either a bonus or penalty die will alter these numbers. Players may, and often should, desperately create positive circumstances for themselves so they can accomplish actions of higher difficulty or increase the likelihood of success when under pressure. So, for instance, I was thinking about automotive repair. What's medium, hard difficulty with the car? If you're trained in it, I'm not trained in automotive repair. So I can probably do a really easy task or trivial tasks about my car. But if I need to even do moderate tasks, well, I need to take it someplace. And one of the reasons that tasks, I didn't have this up. Anyway, so I'll put that up here. So that's one of the reasons. One of the reasons that a task may be difficult is because it requires special equipment. It can be very hard to do some things in automotive repair because it requires some type of extremely specialized equipment to like remove the engine block or something like that. So well-supplied automotive shop, that would be something that would give you an advantage, and a bonus die. So you would get some type of bonus for that. I'm in an extremely well-supplied automotive shop, and I'm being supervised by an expert. Well, those would give you bonuses. I think those would give you bonuses. And then you could routinely, that shop, under those circumstances, could routinely do very hard things that other shops can't do because of the skill there, the equipment there, and so forth. Nathan says, but psychologically it's different. So, this is going off the original thing. Mechanically, an opposed roll is similar to an attacker having disadvantage, but not identical, but similar. But psychologically it's different. A player rolling defense against an incoming attack might feel more ownership of the damage they take, might feel greater agency even when taking damage. And I don't think that you can even, I don't think you can discount that at all. The feel at the table is important in game design. So that may be a reason. It's one of the reasons that I like active defense, for that reason that, well, now hold on, the defensive player feels involved, right? I don't think you can, discount or understate the psychology of it, especially when you're doing a game. Oh, yep. So that is, yep. The Terra Tiles pre-order is going on over on Ravenkeep. When those will start being produced when they come back from Chinese New Year. So Vision says, so you would have to specifically build a character around being able to complete a nearly impossible task. That kind of locks in a character to power. That locks in a character to power build. Well, right. And it, of course, all these TNs are, set up. So if the game master is expecting the nearly impossible to be done, I'm thinking, who does the nearly impossible? Well, a character like Hercules, right? Godlike, near godlike ability scores because he's, half god, high skill. He can do that kind of thing. And it should be easy to create those characters. So you don't have to create a character that starts off at whatever the equivalent of level 1 is. If the game master says, hey, listen, I'm doing a high-powered campaign, create characters that are demigods. That you should be able to do that. Packet Boy says, I really like the system in Space Station Zero to resolve challenges. From Badger Studio. I have not heard about that one. We've got Open D&D says, Nathan is right. Oppositional roles versus paired roles. Traveler, I need to look at Traveler too. There's still so many systems to look at, right? Traveler has a nice system that with skills and combat with their 2d6 system. Traveler is a nice 2d6 system with low bonuses that make every point in each skill go a long way. That is under. Now you've got it in my head too. It's in my head now too. That might become a standard here at the table. So here is governing ability scores. So I was only going to use 4 ability scores. Something like, name's not final yet, but something like strength, agility, intelligence, or presence, and presence. So I said governing ability scores. When a character undertakes an action, the GM determines which of the character's abilities, strength, agility, intelligence, or presence, will govern the check based on the approach the player is using to bring about the desired outcome. Every action is governed by one and only one ability. Furthermore, when considered holistically, this is what we were just talking about, being able to do a lot of things with a small number of things. Each action is governed by one and only one ability. Furthermore, when considered holistically, the character's set of abilities govern all possible actions the character can undertake in the game world. The ability section, so you're always looking at those. Everything that you can do must be governed by one of those 4 actions. And I think that is pretty much the way humans interact with the world. Humans and other humanoid type things. We can change the world. We can change something about the world with our strength. We can change something about the world with our agility and our dexterity. We can change something about the world with our intelligence, or we can change something about the world with our presence, which is like, it's not exactly charisma, but this is what you roll for in social situations. If you're trying to negotiate something with somebody, or you are trying to intimidate them, or including animals, or get them to respond better to you. To me, strength, dexterity, intelligence, and then something to do with your social ability are really the 4 key ways that we interact with the world. So I think that has it. GURPS has 4 as well, and a lot of things are based on dexterity and intelligence, and it still works. I mean, those are the 2 most important in GURPS. So I don't think that's a problem. And I think all 4 of these would get used. Although, for instance, like in a modern day campaign, strength may not be as important. I mean, today, how much does your strength matter in just general everyday life? We've made it less significant. But anyway, the ability section provides guidance regarding what ability is used for what kind of actions, but the GM is the ultimate arbiter of what ability will be used to attempt the action. However, the ability used to resolve an action must be consistent for all resolutions of that action and for all characters who attempt it. For instance, if several characters are trying to jump across a pit, the ability that governs the check must be the same for all characters, meaning the action would not be governed by strength for some characters and agility for other characters. So that's in a situation where you're using something like approaches, like in Fate Accelerated, like we've talked about. Everybody can't just always use whatever they're best at. Here's the task, here's its difficulty, and here's what ability governs it. Some people will be good at that, some people will be bad at it, but you can't just always go to your highest ability. If what ability should govern the action is ambiguous or arguable, the GM should determine what the most likely point of failure would be for the action. That ability is the ability that is most associated with that point of failure is the one that governs the check. So strength, agility, intellect, and will. You see, now will I almost put in, but I'm using will. These are the abilities. They're not all the attributes. So I'm using will as a resistance. And in GURPS, arguably, will is the lost 5th stat. And I kind of agree with that. That will is there. Will is there in GURPS, but that it needed to be elevated to one of the 5 core. Because we got 4 core in GURPS right now. So I understand that. Space Station 0, Packet Boy says, uses D12 opposed check systems. Your stat decides how many D12s you roll, and only even numbers are successes. Harder challenges might only count even numbers above a threshold to be a success. Well, we need to look at it. And the social combat system relies on will, because we need to study social combat or social situations, resolving social situations specifically on the morning grind. Let's see. We got off to a hiccup this morning because I was muted or microphone was off. So let's go for just a few more minutes to make up for that. We'll take a look, because I think skill proficiencies was what I was writing right before this went live. So this gets me through where I was anyway, as far as this rewrite. So I was saying that skill proficiencies, being proficient in a skill, makes certain actions more likely to be successful by providing a bonus to the check. However, unlike attributes, not every check will be associated with a skill. That was important because when I was originally writing this, I was trying to make every check have a pairing of an ability and a skill. But that's difficult because you have to write, you've got one list of attributes that governs everything. Everything must be governed, an ability. Every check must be governed by one of these 4 ability scores. If you want to make sure, you would also have to make sure that your list of skills governs every possible action in the world as well. If you must always pair an ability with a skill. And eventually I was like, I don't want to do that. I don't want to try to give a list of skills that govern every action you can take in the world. So skills are optional. However, unlike attributes, not every check will be associated with a skill. Every check to complete an action can be undertaken without a skill. The GM may suggest a skill that may be useful to the player, but it's primarily the player's responsibility to suggest a potentially applicable skill if he or she has one. The player may argue for the applicability of a skill, but the GM is the ultimate arbiter of what skill is applicable to the check. And actually, I think this is more along the way of how Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition is supposed to run. People always go to skill lists. What's my skill? What skill applies? But you're not supposed to do that. You're supposed to look at your abilities, and then if a particular skill is relevant, then you add its bonus. Only one skill may be applied to any given check. In the event that 2 or more skills could possibly be helpful in determining success or failure, the skill most applicable to the action's key failure point should be used. Any action to which a skill would apply should be consistent across all attempts of the action. For instance, an attempt to pick a lock might require the thief skill. Therefore, any character attempting to pick the lock may add their thief skill to the roll for the check if they have it, but some characters would not add thief while others added rogue, for instance. Skills come in 4 different levels of proficiency: familiar, trained, expert, and mastery. The most common level of proficiency for a character is trained, which provides a +5 bonus when attempting actions related to the skill. Being trained in a skill means the character is competent enough to use the skill professionally and potentially make a living at it. Most general non-player characters in a game world with average abilities will have one skill they are trained in related to their profession. Expert +10 represents a much higher level of proficiency in a skill and is likely only achieved after years of dedicated learning and practice. Mastery +15 is the pinnacle of proficiency in a skill and is reserved only for the most competent. Although maybe we could add something like grand mastery to if you're trying to reach up and touch higher level objects. Grand mastery would higher level TNs. Grand mastery, I guess, would give you +20. I'll think about adding that. That would mean that you could start to accomplish closer to the nearly impossible with less than godlike stats if there was a grand mastery level. Maybe we should add that. There may only be a handful of masters of a skill in a world. The lowest proficiency level, familiar, is for hobby level or secondary skills that characters may have. Skill bonuses do not stack. If the character has 2 or more instances of the same skill, use the skill with the highest bonus. The lower bonus is assumed by the better skill, not added to it. And that's because I like card generation and I want to use cards to generate characters. So if you've got a particular background, so if you've got a background that's like a religious background or something like that as an acolyte, that might give you, your backgrounds are probably giving you familiarity with a bunch of different things. But then your actual class, your profession, if you're a cleric, well, then you would get trained +5 in those cleric skills. But just because you have religion at +2 because of the background doesn't mean that you would get religion +7, for instance, if you're a cleric. So you would just get +5 because that's your familiarity as an acolyte with the subject is subsumed by being a professional cleric. That should also encourage people to take different backgrounds, which is what I wanted to encourage in Dungeons and Dragons, but it seems like it doesn't really work the way that I want it to work. Because if you're a cleric, okay, take acolyte background. But I want you to be able to take cleric. Okay, there we go. Now you're proficient in cleric stuff and you're a cleric. But take a background that's going to give you different skills that aren't associated but will complement your cleric nature. So if you take a background, for instance, that is identical to your profession or your class, you're not deriving as much benefit. That should encourage people to have a variety of skills. If the character has an associated skill, add its value to the attribute value when attempting the related action. That number is the character's base competence in the action. When not under pressure, the cost of failure is low and the character has plenty of time to repeatedly attempt the action. Add an additional 5 to that number. So the standard thing to do is not roll dice. It's only when you're under pressure that you're going to roll dice for that 5. But if you're not under pressure, just add 5 to it. That number is the character's normal expected competence, NEC, when attempting an action using that skill, is not under stress and can apply him or herself without great distraction. That's where I got to. Jeopard says, how does my system handle languages? I haven't really thought specifically about languages yet. That is an interesting question. I'll have to think about that because, coming from like a MERP background, I would say, hey, one of the things I like is let's get really granular in how well you're able to speak or read or write a language. But it may not be appropriate, that level of granularity for the system. Charlie Blocker, good to see you, says, rogue expertise is a good way to have Grand Master. The skill monkey class can accomplish things and casters and warriors can't. I'm going to think about adding Grand Master because I think of Feanor. Like maybe there should be a Grand Master class, Grand Master level. And I'm thinking about all this as modules anyway to be able to put together. So I'm going to go over here to, did I put the chart here? I didn't. So I guess I should actually have a chart here. Proficiency level, bonus. Proficiency level, familiar. And so this is bonus over here. +2, +5. Now, some people may want to be able to be a +6 or a +7. So there might be some rules that need to be added later on. But I'm trying to stay with simple so that you're trained, that's +5. You're an expert, that's +10. So someplace you would jump between being trained and expert. Some people would want incremental progress, so we could add something like that in. Let's say Grand Mastery. That would be +20. So plus Grand Mastery alone, but that's going to be extremely rare. So Grand Mastery alone would get you halfway to accomplishing the nearly impossible. And so if you pair Grand Mastery with being extraordinary in the associated ability, because you would think that the people out there who could do that, and I'm thinking like Feanor forging the Cimmerals, that he's probably at least extraordinary, probably incredible. Maybe he's not godlike, but maybe he's incredible. Maybe he's incredible in his the ability related to forging. That would give him a +15, and then Grand Mastery. So that would be 35. So so Feanor, if you were incredible in your ability score and you were a Grand Master of your craft, then you would be accomplishing the absurdly hard. The absurdly hard would be 35. That sounds pretty good to me because then that would still reserve something for the nearly impossible, which would be something like Aula, the smith, the god of the forge, right? So can you be better than Feanor? Well, maybe Aula can because he's an actual god. So he has god or godlike ability scores. That would give him the additional 5 and that would allow Aula to accomplish the nearly impossible. I like that. I like that. Charlie Blocker says, I tied ability options to race and background. So a high elf can have +2 dex, +1 int, or they can have +2 wisdom, +2 int if they have the acolyte background. The factotum is a great jack of all trades, a wide skill base, but specialists should be deeper delves in a skill set. Oh yeah, everybody. Yep, we do have. Yeah, this is a great crowd. Thank you so much for everybody being here while we're talking about designing RPGs. So yes, please do hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't been here. It would be great to have you. Tuesday, we don't have dedicated stuff to look at on Saturdays and Sundays. I haven't defined those days. Sunday's kind of our potpourri day, so I might end up if I make more progress on this, also looking at RPGs Saturday or Sunday or something like that. At this RPG. Rogue expertise and Bard's jack of all trades would be start for a character to achieve on doing near impossible tasks successfully. Well, I don't know. It seems like if you're playing a Bard, then you're probably not, and you're trying to actually be a jack of all trades, you're probably not the person who is accomplishing the nearly impossible tasks. I would think the nearly impossible tasks are the people who are highly specialized. Open D&D says, I like a 7th ability score, morale. We've talked about morale quite a bit here and when to use it. Yeah, it's not. Yeah, okay. So there is a difference between an expert class. So yeah, so some people are like, I guess that's where this is coming from. That the expert class that's very similar to rogue and stuff like that. But I wasn't thinking about expert as a class. So that was not my thinking. But Charlie says also expert class is really restricted to rogues. I was not thinking about expert as a class. That's not how I was using the term. Maybe bards, but something like artificer, a half class, or alchemist from Pathfinder are good examples of experts that aren't stabby. Yeah, so if you want to play an alchemist, which I want to be able to have good alchemism in here. And so this is intended also to be a general system, a generic system, and then it can be applied and used modularly for my other worlds. So I want you to be able to have alchemists. And so you could, be an expert alchemist. I was actually also thinking about alchemy when I was talking about the hard or the nearly impossible or whatever. Another advantage that you could have, a situation that might make something easier for you to accomplish, task easier to accomplish, is if you are working in a well-stocked alchemist shop, and even though you yourself are only trained, like you're a competent alchemist, you're trained in alchemy, but you're in this incredibly well-stocked shop with all the specialty equipment, and you're being supervised by a master alchemist. So maybe there are like 5 different alchemists who are all trained working in there, but the master alchemist is supervising though. So that gives you a bonus because you're being supervised by somebody who really knows what they're doing, and that allows those trained alchemists to prepare potions that they otherwise wouldn't if they were working on their own. But then the really difficult potions, the Grand Master or the Master is going to have to take care of. Hail, Darth Gavel. Thought Totem says, is there a learning curve? Can you make a lot of skill points? You can make a lot of skill points regularly, but as you go up in skill mastery, it costs more to advance the higher level of your specialization. Yeah, I would expect that. I haven't come up with any type of system for how you increase your skills yet, but I would expect that in order to demonstrate why these are so rare, that the further you go up, the more time, the more training that it's going to take in order to move to the next level of proficiency. Charlie says Feanor could be an artificer with less focus on steampunk techno-magic and more focused on traditional fantasy crafting. And I love magic as crafting. Did I do a YouTube video on that at some point? Because I think that magic system as crafting, even though it's so common in fantasy RPGs or fantasy literature, like Tolkien, but yet I don't see it represented in tabletop RPGs as often. And I really want it to. I took a deep dive in trying to figure out what the best rules are for magic items, and magic as crafting, because I want to use that as part of my worlds. And I did come up with something. Maybe I made a video on it a long time ago, but I know I have some notes on it for sure, because crafting as magic is really something I want to work with. Dearmus says that bards are on the expertise section along rogues in D&D UA section because a jack of all trades and expertise had. That's why I asked the question. All right. Well, we're supposed to be doing another live stream tonight. I would like. I haven't had time to organize an interview because I think on Tuesday nights I could do the table talk interview, but with everything else going on, I haven't had time to organize an interview. So I might do the plugged in. Also, what happens on Tuesday nights is sometimes plugged in. So I might be playing a video game for a little while tonight. But otherwise, thank you so much for being here with me. Oh yes, Factotum, exactly. It is now officially the year of the rabbit. So that means that's another reason why 2023, this is about to get big. This is about to go right here. This is going to be my year, because how can I possibly not be in the year of the rabbit and not make great things happen? So, yeah, I hear you. We need a good crafting system. I hear you. So yes, it's the year of the rabbit. Everybody, go be productive today, and then also hope they get some gaming in. But be productive. See you later. Probably tonight. Grind on.